What's the difference between chronic fatigue syndrome tired and normal tiredness? This is a great question, and in this video I'm going to break it down so you can know the difference between if you're experiencing chronic fatigue syndrome tiredness or just everyday normal life tiredness. And this can be extremely hard if you're going through chronic fatigue syndrome to know the difference, particularly if you've been sick for a while and you're consumed with symptoms like muscle aches and pains, lethargy, brain fog, and just like cognitively overloaded with information, and you're basically consumed by symptoms. As you're going through this recovery journey, it can be really hard to distinguish, is this normal tiredness or is this a symptom of chronic fatigue syndrome? So let's break it down. Chronic fatigue syndrome is obviously you experiencing a range of symptoms, whether they be from a cognitive impairment standpoint or a physical capacity standpoint. You can feel the onset of symptoms in your entire body, whether that's leg pain, gut problems, like I said, cognitive impairment, memory loss, dizziness, all these types of things. Now, chronic fatigue syndrome and tiredness is when you're experiencing an onset of symptoms that are persisting in the present moment. You might be laying in bed and you're literally overwhelmed with symptoms. We would call that chronic fatigue syndrome tiredness, where you're experiencing tiredness because of X symptoms, right? You're laying in bed, you're experiencing extreme muscle pain and lethargy, even though you potentially haven't done anything in using those specific muscles that are making you feel this way. Post-exertional malaise is a big one. And so we would say that's inappropriate brain and body response to chronic fatigue syndrome, okay? We would classify that as chronic fatigue syndrome tiredness. Now, healthy, normal, appropriate tiredness is done by using a certain amount of energy within your capacity that actually makes you feel a little bit tired afterwards, but doesn't make you feel any worse than you currently do. And the normal tiredness means that you're not exacerbating your symptoms, or you're not having a major onset of symptoms after doing something. I'll give you a perfect example from a physical standpoint. Let's say you walk a flight of stairs, and by the end of the flight of stairs, you can feel your quadriceps burning, you can feel your hamstrings working, and you might go, wow, I can really feel it in my legs right now. And let's say in 2 days' time, you have delayed onset muscle soreness, which is a normal, healthy response from a body that might not be that conditioned. Even as a healthy person, if you go to the gym, you're going to get delayed onset muscle soreness, which usually lasts from 24 to 48 hours. If your legs are sore because you walked up a flight of stairs and your legs aren't used to that, we would call that normal, appropriate muscle tiredness. But let's say you walk the stairs, but then you get a sore throat and you get brain fog and all your symptoms are amplified. We would say that's an inappropriate response. It's too much, and that's what's causing your symptoms, the onset of symptoms. But if you walk the stairs and you just feel it in your quads and there's no other problems, then we would say that's normal tiredness. The same thing, and we always say this to our clients as they're getting better, we want all of our members to get to the end of the day and feel normal, healthy, appropriate tiredness at the end of the day, which means that there's going to be a natural sleepiness, which is going to help them with their sleep, right? The problem is with most people with chronic fatigue syndrome, they're either doing too little and resting too much, which is actually causing them to have disrupted sleep, or they're doing too much and they're tired and wired and they can't relax and calm down. This is why we have a huge emphasis on really doing the right things at the right time to get the right response. It's not about doing too much, but it's certainly not about doing too little. And we want to get to that normal tiredness. And this is why you have to work within your current capacity to make sure that you have a healthy, appropriate response from your brain and your body, which means that you won't have worse symptoms, which means that you won't get post-exertional malaise. All these things are actually avoidable when you have the right plan and you stick to it and you're consistent with it. Over time, as you build your capacity, your resiliency to outside stimulus gets better, which means that you can adapt to new stimulus appropriately, which means that you don't feel any worse than you currently do. And as you get better and you have more capacity and more stamina, you actually get more energy. And so energy is the last thing to come back with recovery. Don't focus on energy as a measurement tool for recovery. Focus on capacity and strength and stamina. Make sure that your health is maintaining. You're not feeling any worse than you currently do. And that's going to be the biggest helper in your recovery journey to progress to new levels. Now, as we wrap up this video, there's 4 key components that you need to think of when it comes to overdoing it with chronic fatigue syndrome in your recovery. Number 1, physical, right? Your physical capacity, you can overdo it physically. Cognitively, right? Reading, writing, studying, working. Now, if you're doing the right amount, fantastic. You should have healthy, appropriate cognitive tiredness after reading a book, or reading 1 page of a book, or working 1 hour, or working 5 hours, depending on your current functionality. The other things you want to think about is like social fatigue, right? Mental, emotional fatigue. You need to know the difference between healthy, appropriate amount versus inappropriate and way too painful and challenging for you that's actually not going to help you with your recovery. And then lastly, the one that never gets talked about is spiritual fatigue as well. And what I mean by that is the personal development fatigue and isolation and loneliness that chronic fatigue syndrome creates, which means that you're basically going for a huge transformation. You're going through an identity crisis, you're having to let go of the old, you have to build the new, and that can be extremely challenging and exhausting in its own self. And so becoming aware of these 4 key components of progress and recovery is going to be very helpful for you on the journey, so you can start to differentiate, oh, I'm tired because of X, because I read way too many pages of a book than I normally have, or I went for a much longer walk and now I'm feeling the consequences and I've got chronic fatigue syndrome tiredness. Or the opposite, which is what we want, which is I did the appropriate level of activity for me and I feel normal tiredness, and that is good. I'm not feeling any worse. My health is maintaining and I'm moving forwards. And this is what we help people with every single day inside our program, ensuring that they're making a solid plan, they're able to maintain their current level of capacity for at least 2 to 4 weeks, so that they can progress to the next level appropriately and their brain and body can adapt so they function well, they don't go backwards, and they can keep moving forwards. So that's the difference between chronic fatigue syndrome tiredness and normal tiredness. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and let us know in the comment what was your biggest takeaway from today's video. Sending my love, hang in there, and know that recovery is possible.